Each week, we take a moment, sit down, and talk about things going on at the road in what we call the Road Detour.
Welcome to the Road Detour. It's the day after the great eclipse. Did you watch the eclipse, man?
I went out there for a couple of minutes. Hey, Did you see what Charles Barkley said?
No, I did not.
He said, "Are you like one of all the rest of the losers that went out and watched the sun?" And they really gave him a hard time. It was really fun. I did go out and somebody had some Sonic glasses, and so
I watched it briefly. It was cool. You know, kind of different reactions. My wife, it was not a big deal to her. She went on with her day, didn't pause for it. Dustin never went out of his office to look, I don't think. But then we have a new lady here who works, and she said it made her. She went to the 100%, and she said she wept. And she said she wasn't the only one. She said there were numbers of people. It was so huge.
Wow. So my kids' school, they all went and watched it. And I said, "Well, what did you think?" And they said, "We were bored out of our minds sitting out there in the grass with all the ants." So
yeah, different reactions.
I don't know. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was okay.
Did I see you at a dance party as they were watching the eclipse?
That was the eclipse dance. Oh, yeah. Oh, I know it's yeah. Our Widows and Widowers group was out there. Yeah. And we went over there. They had some music going, and they were having a good time.
Yeah, that was cool. I enjoyed going out. I did go out and see them and give them a high five.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we're thankful that you survived the eclipse, first of all, and that you joined us today. Yeah, apocalypse. Let you know a few things that are coming. If you haven't gone online and signed up for date night, do that. Space is limited for that. Childcare is provided for that. You can go online. I'm going to make the assumption that we'll throw up a little insert, a little graphic here to let you know where to go and how to get there and what to do. But yeah, take advantage of that. What else is coming?
Man, there is something else. Date night. Baby dedication.
Baby dedication.
Yeah.
Sign up for baby dedication because space is limited and space is filling up, and that is Mother's Day, which is May 16th, I think, 12th, May 12th. That week, we have 5 opportunities. Space is limited in each service, so go ahead and go online and sign up to have your baby dedicated.
I am also excited, if you're a lady and you're watching this and you're thinking you're going to be bringing your family here. I love, again, this year, like I did last year, the gifts that we're giving all the ladies that come through the door. So,
oh yeah, yep. You'll want your gift. You'll want
that's for sure.
Sermon series coming. We got finishing up Grace, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But we got the next series is called Warrior because there are some things in life worth fighting for.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I read 2 of your messages as I was preparing for mine, and man, you ask a question I think is just so really good. Where have all the warriors gone? And so I don't want to try to give away your message.
No, you're fine. We can talk about it.
But I really think it's really hard. And again, kind of piggybacking off of this grace thing that we've been kind of walking through, right? We want to fight. And is there a way to fight too much? Or what if how do we know when we're fighting for the right thing? And some things just really aren't our fight. And if somebody's trying to fight us, how often do we give them grace?
I've had some conversations, but now my mind's running, and that's the way this works. So what does a warrior fight for? So in the history of the world,
sure,
wars have been fought to conquer lands.
Yep.
Right? I want more.
Yep.
I want more, so I'm going to fight a war. Actually, the Bible talks about that. Why are there fightings and quarrels among you?
Yep.
Because of your lust, so you can consume it upon yourself.
Yep.
So wars have been fought for that reason. What else? Why else do people fight?
Well, I think that
invasion. You came to me, so I had to fight.
Retaliation, sure. I think that people I think inherently people are just selfish and they want their way, and regardless, and so they get into an argument with a friend, right? Or family because they like this candidate or they like this thing or they believe in this value over another value. And so some people just love drama.
How about this? How about we fight? Wars have been fought over misaligned values.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. And I don't know if you're going to run with this or not, but you were talking to me yesterday about a book you were reading about the only reason a warrior should ever fight.
So this was really good.
A follower of Jesus.
So it was Erwin McManus again. So first of all, he's a pastor in California, Mosaic Church. He's a really interesting, creative Baptist pastor. Okay. And so he has a a lot of different books. A lot of our men at our church read the book, The Barbarian Way. And so there's kind of a follow-up with that is The Way of the Warrior. And he says in this book, which his whole premise is on, and it's one of the points in my message actually, is that a true warrior is only engaging in a fight or a battle for the sole purpose of peace.
I like that.
And so if the reason a warrior fights is because there is a desire for peace in something, a peace in, America, right? So they want some, just to be over with. They want us to be able to go back to our happy way of life or whatever. And so they're willing to only engage in that battle, in that fight, not for the purpose of necessarily even winning, but for the purpose of peace.
So I got some opinions about about where have all the warriors gone.
We want to know every single one of your opinions.
We have done a horrible job. Oh, well, it's according to which side of the fence you're on, of feminizing our church men. We've done we have designed church for women in many regards and how we do it. Wow. I don't mean that as it's just a reality. Sit down and listen to me is not a male thing. Right?
Sure.
Men don't learn well sitting still, listening to a single speaker in a lecture format. Men learn well as doers.
Yeah, engagers.
Yes, let me get up, let me get busy. So if you're a first grade, a second grade, a third grade boy, what you hear in your classrooms is sit down, be quiet, sit down, be quiet, sit down, be still, sit down, be quiet. And so we teach them to go counter to the way God wired them. And so what happens is men either quit church or they become... they're no longer warriors.
This is really interesting because, one of the things so my son Max is 13 and just trying to walk with him and becoming a man. And one of the things that just in researching how to become a man and how to engage with youth and other young men and other men in general is that you don't engage a man face to face. You best engage side to side.
Yeah.
So if we're doing something together, they actually hear it better.
Men don't talk. Men don't go to dinner and go, hey, let's go out and get coffee and talk. No. Men say, hey, come over, help me build something. What?
So I don't know if it's called a meme. We might have to take this out.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
We might have to take this out. There was a meme, and it was an Instagram story clip, and it was a guy, it was a stand-up comedian. Okay, first of all, I should say that. But he was like, he and his family, their family friends, they don't hang out anymore because the family friends got a divorce. And he said, I finally went and hung out with my buddy, and my wife wanted to know, like, how's he doing? He's like, I don't know. And is it in a relationship? Well, I don't know. She's like, you talked with him for 4 hours. Like, what did you talk about? And he was like, we drank beer. So it was really literally something. They had no conversation, but everybody, it's a true story though. Like a lot of guys, we can enjoy each other's presence and not necessarily.
You have said this about your own life that you miss the locker room.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So watch guys talk when they do. Guys talk on the field, right? Yeah. Guys talk in the workout room, in the weight room. You guys work out. I know this is true, especially for you and Elijah. Y'all spent some good time talking as you worked out. It was as you're doing. We don't make appointments to talk as men. We do together and we talk. And so we have not designed well. And so one of the things I think that our men's ministry is doing is giving the guys the chance. We talk around the table, but some of our groups are going and doing.
Yes.
And you see the difference. Even in small groups where they go and do, you see the difference.
I love that. You know what they say? I read this the other day as related to leadership. And I might have sent it to you, but I can't remember. But it said there's this often leadership adage that says it's lonely at the top. And this particular author said it's only lonely when you're on a ladder, but it's actually beneficial when you're sitting at a table.
Wow.
And so like when you're thinking about we're together in this versus you're not side by side on a ladder.
I hope I can tell what I want to tell without getting all emotional. So my wife dies. Yeah. And I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit. And people are writing me and stuff, and this young man writes me. And he said, I hope you don't quit. He said, but if you do, I want to say some things to you. He said, I can't remember a sermon you preached. He's a pastor today.
Yeah.
He said, what I remember is sitting around your table playing cards with you. What I remember is laughing in your living room. And he said, those things will always make a difference for me. It was what we did together.
Yeah.
Not the setting in a church
that's really
scenario.
good.
So again, where have all the warriors gone? Well, as you're going to find out in the sermon, we've driven them out of town. And that's what the message is about.
That's a really good way to end that part of this conversation. That's the truth. That's the biblical story
that
you're going to unpack for us. And I'm really excited, again, just about this Warrior series. And then after that, we're going to be through the BRP, and that's going to be a good...
During that Warrior series, we're going to close it with a woman's forum. We're going to have some of our wives on stage, and we're going to talk about what it's like to be a warrior as a woman, what's worth fighting for, and how you fight for your family, your kids. And that's on Mother's Day. So that we're doing some really special stuff on Mother's Day this year.
You know, I'm excited because I think, and again, for our congregation, the people that watch online, is that when it's you or I speaking, they're getting a male perspective. But when we can really, again, think of the concept of the table, when we can really set the table and say, hey, there's more to understanding Scripture than just through my opinion and your opinion is I think that's going to be good.
I've said it for years and years and years to everybody I've ever worked with. Our wives are typically more in tune with God than we are. Is that if I've got a hard decision to make, my wife will know the direction of that decision 9 times out of 10 before I do. But they're just naturally wired, it seems like, to be attuned to hear God.
It's amazing how often I have been so fired up, passionate, mad, excited about something, and me come to Allison, and sometimes jokingly I'll call her my dream killer, but but she is so good, though, about bringing wisdom into whatever it is that I'm kind of about to really kind of blow it in. Whether it seems good or bad, she really knows how to bring the spirit into the conversation, which is, thank God for
for our women. Yeah. Hey, we thought about a question that we want to throw out and talk about. So hopefully you haven't tuned out yet, because I think this is really good. Something of depth and significance can there be such a thing as too much grace? We've been talking about grace. Yeah. I think we could agree that from God's perspective to our lives, we'll never go beyond that grace. That grace is unlimited and eternal. But what about in daily life? Raising your kids, being friends, doing relationships. Can we be too gracious?
So I know what kind of I feel like the biblical answer is, and then I also know kind of where I would probably say from me even, right? And hopefully in some way that they kind of make sense. I think the biblical answer is you can never get enough spiritual grace. Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that.
I'll say that with that.
What I tell you that I read, let me think who said this. Steve Brown said, the only response to God's grace is to receive more grace.
So, but I think there's a difference in saying, can I extend grace to something that is hurting the fellowship with God and others versus how often do I extend grace in something that's actually physically and emotionally hurting me?
Okay.
I actually think there's a difference in that because if every time you see me, I punch you in the mouth, right? How often are you going to forgive me?
Right.
There's a point where if you continue to come around me, you're kind of dumb.
Yeah, I'll say.
Right. You should set a boundary that keeps me from hurting you.
See, and I think people use the word boundary. I think people look at following Jesus means I've checked my brain at the door. That if, let's say that you have a parent who abused you as a child and now you're trying to make decisions about your grandchildren.
Correct.
Right? And you go, well, because I followed Jesus, I've got to let my grandchildren go over there. No, you don't become dumb because you follow Jesus. Yeah. We can figure out a way to have visitation, but for me to just leave my kids and go on my merry way is not a smart decision.
Right. And I think that's what maybe people need to hear from you. Maybe, I guess, as I'm just thinking through conversations I've had recently as it relates to grace, is that Grace doesn't mean you don't make boundaries. Grace doesn't mean you don't speak truth. Grace doesn't mean that, that you have to make decisions that other people aren't going to like.
Right.
Grace just simply means I'm going to forgive you. That's what grace means.
In the end, that's what it means. Okay, so I got a question for you. It's a setup question.
Okay.
So grace is a river. Grace is a river.
Okay.
What are the banks that it runs between? Truth has got to be one of them. Because if grace floods over the bank of truth, we have a disaster.
Yep.
So truth has got to be one bank. What's the other bank? It's a good question.
Do you have the?
I have, but I cannot remember the other bank. But we ought to be able to lay out some options. Grace runs between truth and I actually think I may have heard this illustration as love runs. Love runs between truth and
grace. Right? What is it? Truth and we might need to press pause on this.
So Scripture says in the book of Titus to continually grow in grace and truth.
Right.
Is that to have one without the other is destructive. To have truth without grace is just as destructive as to have grace without truth.
Yeah, okay. So I like this conversation. So it's important to know, though, if you're going to speak truth and how you speak that truth.
In love.
Because if you're a jerk and you're speaking truth, then it doesn't matter how much truth you're speaking. No one gives a rip.
Well, and without throwing any circumstances under the bus, we've had people ask, hey, how far does this go? What does this look like in my relationships with my friends, even my kids, right? So you carry this out. Being a gracious parent, does that mean your kid gets to do anything it wants and walks over you? No. God's not that way, right? God is not that way. Whom the Lord loves, he disciplines.
Right. Well, I think there's something where, I'm thinking about it is that, so in this sense, using that example, grace can almost run synonymous with freedom, right? Mm-hmm. So the Lord gives us freedom and we are not free. Well, we are, how about this? We are free to uniquely and creatively glorify God in however we want.
Right. But what we read this in our BRP, right? That our liberty is not, the word Paul, all things are
beneficial.
Not everything is beneficial or permissible. All things are
permissible but
not everything is profitable for me. And that's very true. I like though what you said about freedom. Right? Freedom, again, is a river. Look at it as a river, that there are boundaries on it. That anything without boundaries will become destructive if you remove those boundaries.
And I think that's the thing I think that's what Christians have a struggle with, is because there is a boundary line to God's kingdom. Mm-hmm. And outside of a boundary line, we find ourselves in danger. And they wrestle with, well, there's the boundary line, but there's actually grace in everything in the center of that boundary. And go ahead.
Cool experiment, true experiment.
Yeah.
So I don't know when it happened. You can Google it. They ran this experiment with a school. They took a school and they took all the fences down around it, and they let the kids go out and have PE, and they clung to the walls of the school. They stood all around the walls of school, wouldn't leave. Put the fences up, and they had the freedom. Boundaries bring true freedom. A lack of boundaries creates fear in life.
Yeah.
And so same thing's true spiritually. Is even the 10 Commandments are not boundaries to restrict life. They're boundaries to enhance life.
Right, exactly. Well, I think going back to the concept of grace, right, is that if you've got this boundary of, whatever, grace has to be, and I think this is the thing, is that all of us are given the choice to decide the boundary line that we need for ourselves, that hopefully fits within the boundary lines of the kingdom, because you have preferences that I don't have, right? And so, or certain things frustrate you that maybe don't frustrate me, and so you need to set a boundary line so that I don't cross that frustrating line, right? And I think what people, in my head, when people are thinking about the relationships and the friendships that they have, is how do we create a boundary line? And if our friend continues to go over that boundary line, and now we have said, okay, stop, or here's this truth that you now need to hear, and yet they continue to go over it, or how do we respond when they just say, well, the heck with you, like I'm
done with you.
I'm done with this now that, I don't know, you judge me or whatever it is. And learning how grace fits into that. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but I feel like learning how grace fits into our life with other people in a way that is freeing for both of us, but also not hurtful for either of us.
How about this? What target does grace move you toward? You and I should be moving us toward what?
Well, greater relationship and with the Lord.
Yeah. And if it's not doing that, if what you think is grace is becoming destructive in a marriage, in relationships, or in somebody's relationship with God, then it may not be grace.
Now say that again.
So if what you perceive is grace, right? Let me do whatever I want. Be gracious to me. Let me do whatever. If that's not moving someone closer to God, if it's not improving their marriage, if it's not moving their marriage closer to God and relationships closer to God, it's probably not really grace.
What would you call it?
This is, listen, I'm going to get into a hole here. This is love is love. That's what it is. Is that I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
Under the auspices of grace.
Yeah. And I think that's where your truth or your desire is not necessarily the truth or God's desires. Right. And so if you start allowing that, if you need that's truth has got to run with grace, right,
or it becomes destructive.
That's good. All right, let's move on.
Hey, we had another thing we're going to do, but I can't remember what it was because I'm old.
What were we going to talk about?
We had two big things, and I can't remember what it was, but we've kind of beat that dog.
We're going to talk about dying. This is this.
Oh yeah. Hey, trigger warning, just so you know, we're talking about how grace impacts death, how grace enables us to face death without fear. This is not a sad sermon. This is not a scary sermon. This talks about the reality, the biblical teachings of death and what death ushers us into that we often have a hard time wrapping our minds around. So I'm letting you know that because, first of all, we don't like surprises. Nobody likes to show up at church and go, oh, my gosh, if I'd have known this, I wouldn't have come. So we're telling you. And there's some people, look, there's a whole lot. We had, 22, something
50,
like that.
20, 50.
Somebody's dying of that many people. And it's their reality. And so we want you to be informed when you show up.
That's good. I actually have heard we're all dying.
We are.
And we're all just in different stages of where that is.
Yeah. I told Leah today, she fears the draft. I said, not everybody's drafted, but everybody's dying.
Yeah. I haven't read this message yet. Are you talking about if you fear or what you fear most about death?
Me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. What do you fear most about death? I don't think you fear death.
That's a good question.
It's not the same question as do you fear death? Because I don't think you do.
Right.
But
I don't
what
think
do you
I
fear
fear
most?
death. What would I fear most? Missing out on something. I mean, I know that's just that's low hanging fruit. But who wants to miss out on their grandkids? I don't. Yeah. I want to see my grandkids. I want to see the ball games. And now the reality is, I believe with all my heart is that I want, because I'm going to live forever. And that what's happening here, I just won't physically be. There's a void, right? And I won't be there physically if I die. But I do fear missing out on. And the crazy thing is, if you look at life, death means for the believer that you also miss out on the bad. That's what Jesus kept promising.
That's good.
No more tears, no more death, no more dying. Revelation 21. That would be it.
If God gives me the grace to live longer than you, as soon as you die, I'm going to shoot your big deer that you wanted to shoot.
Are you going to go get it for me?
I'm going to go get it. And I'm going to hang it on my wall.
Oh, I got a picture of one I need to show you. I got a picture of one from the neighborhood we're in now that is unreal.
I can show you how to get rid of it.
I already got a plan. I already got a plan, brother. I got a plan in place.
That's fun. Well, hey guys, we love you. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this Detour. Let me just say, I feel like sometimes we forget to say this, but if this has meant anything to you, would you do us a favor, share it and point your friends to it, and let's grow together.
Yep. See you Sunday. See you Wednesday.
Love you guys.